You've been lied to about compliments. They told you to say she's beautiful, to praise her eyes, her smile, her dress. But let me tell you the truth, those compliments go straight into the trash bin of her memory. You're not the first one to say them. You won't be the last. They don't make her feel anything special. They make her feel categorized, judged, forgettable. The myth that compliments automatically create attraction is one of the biggest lies men are sold. You've been told that if you just say something nice, something kind, something sweet, she'll feel something for you. That a compliment is like a magic key that unlocks her interest. But the truth is, praise is cheap. Precision is rare. And that difference is everything. Most compliments fail not because they're inappropriate, but because they're forgettable. Saying, "You're beautiful," might be polite, but it's also something she hears constantly. Online, on the street, in passing glances. That kind of compliment doesn't stop her. It doesn't make her pause. It doesn't penetrate. Why? Because it doesn't require any real attention from the person saying it. It's automatic. It's surface level. And women have developed radar for that kind of lazy validation. But now think of what happens when you don't just notice her looks. You notice something specific, something nuanced, something she doesn't hear every day. That's where precision comes in. It's not about being flashy or clever. It's about being present enough to actually see her. The tone in her voice when she talks about her childhood, the way her energy shifts when she's passionate, the quiet resilience in her eyes when she's trying to act tough. When you compliment that, you're not praising, you're perceiving. And perception is rare. That's what makes it powerful. Attraction, especially deep attraction, lives in the emotional brain. It lives in the places where logic isn't making the decisions. Emotion is. And emotional responses are not triggered by generic statements. They're triggered by words that make her feel understood, recognized, and safe to unfold. When you hit that emotional core, when your compliment reflects a truth about her that she didn't think anyone else could see, her brain releases more than just dopamine. It releases trust. And trust, paired with intrigue, becomes a powerful magnet. The forbidden compliments aren't forbidden because they're vulgar or risky. They're forbidden because they require a vulnerability on your part. You have to speak from truth, not tactic. You have to risk being wrong. You have to care enough to see. And that's something most men avoid because it takes presence, intuition, and courage. So remember, attraction isn't built through volume. It's not about how many nice things you say. It's about the one thing you say that cuts through the noise. Precision means you're not trying to impress her. You're reflecting her. And that kind of mirror is irresistible. Because in a world of copy, paste compliments, a man who sees with clarity stands out like a signal in the static. Forbidden compliments bypass surface, level validation, and speak directly to a woman's identity, mystery, and self-worth. Most men aim for approval. They give compliments the way a child hands over a drawing, hoping for praise in return. "You're so pretty. You have a gorgeous smile. I love your style." While these words might earn a polite thank you, they rarely create emotional weight. Why? Because they exist on the surface. They validate what's already obvious, already praised, already known. They do nothing to penetrate the layers of identity, the depth of her emotional world, the hidden places where real attraction is born. Forbidden compliments are different. They are not about noticing what's visible. They're about sensing what's invisible. They speak to the things she guards, the things she wonders if anyone else can feel. Her strength that's been forged through pain. Her softness that she hides beneath sarcasm. Her wildness that's been dulled by expectations. When you speak to these things, without asking her to explain them, you're doing something that most men will never dare. You're seeing her beneath her performance. That's why forbidden compliments don't just create appreciation. They create obsession. They touch a woman's identity, the core of who she believes she is when no one's watching. Complimenting her identity is more than flattery, it's confirmation. It says, "I see the version of you that even you question, and I find it captivating." That strikes a chord so deep it leaves an emotional echo. Then there's the compliment that touches her mystery. Every woman is a constellation of contradictions, soft but fierce, confident but unsure, expressive but guarded. The average man flattens her complexity to a single trait, beauty, humor, intellect. But when you reflect her paradox back to her, when you say something like, "You carry peace like someone who's been through a war," you honor her fullness. And that's magnetic. Because now she doesn't feel observed, she feels understood. And the moment a woman feels understood by you, she begins to emotionally bond with you, whether she intends to or not. Lastly, forbidden compliments speak to self-worth, not appearance. They say, you matter, not because of how you look, but because of who you are when no one's looking. This is powerful because many women are praised for their image, but starved for recognition of their essence. When you give her that, without expectation, without agenda, you activate something ancient in her. You show up as a man who doesn't just want to take from her, you want to witness her. That witnessing creates emotional gravity. It's not loud, it's not flashy, but it's unforgettable. These are not manipulations. They're reflections of rare masculine awareness. Too many men hear the word forbidden and think it means manipulative. They assume these kinds of compliments are tricks, lines, or games meant to control or seduce. But that assumption exposes something deeper: a lack of awareness. A man who thinks speaking to a woman's identity is manipulation doesn't understand attraction. He understands performance. And performance is exactly what real, grounded women see right through. The truth is, forbidden compliments only work when they come from a place of rare masculine awareness, a level of attention, intuition, and honesty that's missing in most male communication today. They aren't about being clever. They're about being conscious. Conscious of what she's expressing without words. Conscious of the energy she carries beneath her appearance. Conscious of what most people never bother to notice. And that kind of awareness isn't something you fake. It's something you cultivate. This is why most men can't use these compliments effectively. Because they're chasing the right words instead of becoming the kind of man who can feel the truth behind them. You can't compliment a woman's quiet strength if you haven't developed the emotional sensitivity to recognize it. You can't speak to her unexpressed confidence or her hidden hurt or her restrained power unless you've slowed down enough to observe, not just look. But see, that's not manipulation. That's presence. This presence isn't soft or passive. In fact, it's the most grounded form of masculine energy there is. It's what creates polarity. It's what makes a woman feel safe enough to unfold. Because when she senses you're not performing, not hunting, not playing a role, but simply perceiving her with truth and depth, she relaxes. She lets her guard down, and in that space, real connection begins. To reach that space, though, you must understand more than just communication. You must begin to understand female psychology. How women process connection. What makes them feel seen? What causes emotional tension? Not just physical attraction. You must understand how women are constantly decoding the gap between what a man says and what his energy is actually doing. That gap is everything. Mastering these compliments isn't about sounding poetic. It's about aligning your words with your awareness. If you say something profound, but your body language is insecure, she won't feel it. If you compliment her depth, but only care about how she looks, she'll feel the disconnect. That's what makes it fall apart. But when your compliment is a reflection, not a performance, when it emerges from stillness, not strategy, it lands deep. It moves her. And it does so not because it's forbidden, but because it's real. This isn't game. This is attunement. And a man who learns to tune into that frequency doesn't chase attention. He attracts devot. Women remember how you made them feel, not what you said. Words fade. Feelings last. That's the reality of emotional memory, especially for women. Long after she's forgotten the exact sentence you spoke, she will remember the energy behind it. She will remember whether she felt seen, stirred, understood, or just politely acknowledged. That's why forbidden compliments are not just about sounding different. They're about making her feel something unforgettable. Most men aim for approval. They say things to get a reaction, to be liked, to be rewarded. That's why their compliments land with a thud, like tapping glass instead of striking a chord. Because there's no emotional charge behind it. No weight. No mystery. Just words flattened by fear or need. But the men who master forbidden compliments don't focus on what they're saying. They focus on what the woman is feeling while hearing it. The female brain is hardwired for emotional interpretation. Women remember tone, subtext, body language. They remember the pause in your voice when you said something real. They remember the steadiness in your eyes when you weren't asking for anything, just offering truth. It's not the sentence, it's the sensation it leaves behind. And when a compliment stirs something deep in her, when it brushes up against her identity or her shadow or her longing, she doesn't just remember it, she replays it. That's why these forbidden compliments are built around 3 emotional triggers: curiosity, respect, and fascination. Curiosity is what keeps her thinking about you. Respect is what makes her feel safe enough to open. And fascination is what magnetizes her attention toward you without force or performance. These aren't just emotions, they're anchors. And when you give a compliment that anchors into one of those emotional spaces, it becomes an echo in her mind. Curiosity is especially powerful. A compliment that hints at a truth she didn't know she was showing makes her wonder, how did you see that? What else do you see? Who are you to see that in me? You've entered her imagination. You've become a question, not just a man. And women obsess over questions far more than answers. Respect, on the other hand, gives your words credibility. When a woman senses that your compliment isn't just aimed at getting something, when it comes from a place of stillness, not seduction, she lets her guard down. You're not trying to extract validation or affection. You're simply reflecting something real. That respect forms the bridge to trust, which is the foundation of attraction. And then there's fascination. The compliments that touch the edge of mystery, the compliments that don't explain her, but awaken her. Those are the ones that haunt her in the best way. They're the ones that keep her emotionally tied to the feeling of you. So remember, women don't fall for men who say the right things. They fall for men who make them feel something they can't explain. And these compliments, they're not just words. They're emotional fingerprints. Most men never say these because they fear being too bold, too deep, or too real. But that's exactly why they work. The compliments that leave a lasting mark aren't the safe ones. They're not rehearsed. They're not filtered to sound charming or polished. They're raw, bold, and real. And that's why most men never say them, because saying something real means risking rejection, risking silence, risking being misunderstood. And that level of emotional exposure terrifies the average man. Most men have been conditioned to play it safe. Compliment her looks. Laugh at her jokes. Say what she wants to hear. Stay inside the script. Don't say anything too intense. Don't get too honest, because God forbid you scare her away by actually seeing her. But here's the paradox. The very thing most men avoid is exactly what makes a woman lean in. Boldness, depth, authenticity. These are the things that crack through the numbness of surface-level interaction. They pierce through the wall of politeness and performative charm she's used to. When you say something that risks discomfort, something emotionally potent, something that might be too much for the wrong person, it hits completely differently for the right one. Why? Because no one else dares to say it. When you tell her you feel like peace, but I can tell you've survived storms, that's not just a compliment. That's an invitation for her to be seen. It doesn't just acknowledge her, it honors her. And when a man says that with steady, grounded energy, not neediness or flattery, it stops her, because it's rare, and what's rare becomes unforgettable. But rarity requires courage. And this is where most men fold. They fear sounding too intense, too emotional, too spiritual, too aware. They fear stepping out of the role they think women want them to play. But women don't crave perfection. They crave presence. They crave a man who can speak what's real without flinching. A man who has enough emotional intelligence to sense what's under the surface and enough backbone to name it. The forbidden compliments aren't just powerful because of what they say. They're powerful because of who you have to become to say them. You have to be a man who isn't hiding behind coolness. A man who doesn't need to dominate, impress, or entertain. A man who's grounded enough in himself that he can reflect someone else's truth without turning it into a pickup line. And when you do this, when you step outside of the script, you instantly separate yourself from 99% of men, not by being louder, not by being funnier, but by being braver. Because the truth is, women don't remember the man who said the prettiest thing. They remember the man who had the nerve to say the realest thing. And that's why these compliments work. Not because they're flashy, but because they're fearless,